Alright, hello there, thrill seekers. I'm using a new laptop and a new camera today, so we're going to see how it works. I also received in the mail a CD. I'm putting this on my video channel because I'd never ordered this and I don't know who sent it. I listened to it yesterday and it's pretty good. I enjoyed it, but maybe one of you sent it to me. So if you did, let me know. So I got a question from somebody on Patreon and it goes like this. How do you deal with all the pain in the world? Watching the news lately is so difficult. People's ability to hurt each other seems endless. And I get questions like that a lot, and when I got that question, I immediately remembered a passage from the book I Am That by Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. And I'd like to just read it to you, and then I'll see what I can say about it. This comes from a chapter called Self-Awareness is the Witness. It's chapter 50 of the book, if you want to go look it up yourself. And this comes on the second page of a dialogue he's having with some unidentified questioner. There is suffering and bloodshed in East Pakistan, aka Bangladesh, at the present moment. How do you look at it? How does it appear to you? How do you react to it? And Nisargadatta Maharaj says, in pure consciousness, nothing ever happens. This is the kind of answer that people hate to hear. So let's keep going. The questioner says, please come down from these metaphysical heights. Of what use is it to a suffering man to be told that nobody is aware of his suffering but himself? To relegate everything to illusion is insult added to injury. The Bengali of East Pakistan is a fact, and his suffering is a fact. Please do not analyze him out of existence. You are reading newspapers, you hear people talking about it, you cannot plead ignorance. Now, what is your attitude to what is happening? Now, there's no date given on this, but Nisargadatta Maharaj lived in Mumbai, which was called Bombay at that time, and so he's probably talking about the conflict in the early 70s in Bangladesh. There's a conflict here. I'm waiting for this helicopter to go investigate it. So he's probably talking about the conflict in Bangladesh that resulted in the George Harrison album Concert for Bangladesh and all of that. It was a pretty terrifying conflict, and it would have been going on very close by to where this conversation was happening. So he says, what is your attitude to what is happening? And Nisargadatta Maharaj says, no attitude. Nothing is happening. The questioner says, any day there may be a riot right in front of you, perhaps with people killing each other. And this was a real possibility, so we have to remember the context of this. This is something that could have really happened in Mumbai at this point because people were very close to the stuff that was going on in East Pakistan, aka Bangladesh. Surely you cannot say nothing is happening and remain aloof. And here Nisargadatta Maharaj replies, I never talked of remaining aloof. Let's read that again, because a lot of people misunderstand that point. So I'm going to read that little sentence again. I never talked of remaining aloof. You could just as well see me jumping into the fray to save somebody and getting killed. Yet to me, nothing happened. Imagine a big building collapsing. Some rooms are in ruins, some are intact. But can you speak of the space as ruined or intact? It is only the structure that has suffered and the people who happened to live in it. Nothing happened to space itself. Similarly, nothing happens to life when forms break down and names are wiped out. The goldsmith melts down old ornaments to make new. Sometimes a good piece goes with the bad. He takes it in his stride, for he knows that no gold is lost. And the questioner says, it is not death that I rebel against, it is the manner of dying. And Nisargadatta Maharaj replies, death is natural, the manner of dying is man-made. Separateness causes fear and aggression, which again cause violence. Do away with man-made separations, and all this horror of people killing each other will surely end. But in reality, there is no killing and no dying. The real does not die. The unreal never lived. Set your mind right, and all will be right. When you know that the world is one, that humanity is one, you will act accordingly. But first of all, you must attend to the way you feel, think, and live. Unless there is order in yourself, there can be no order in the world. In reality, nothing happens. Onto the screen of the mind, destiny forever projects its pictures, memories of former projections, and thus illusion constantly renews itself. The pictures come and go, light intercepted by ignorance. See the light and disregard the picture. And the questioner says, what a callous way of looking at things. People are killing and getting killed, and here you talk of pictures. Nisargadatta Maharaj replies, by all means go and get killed yourself, if that is what you think you should do. Or even go and kill if you take it to be your duty. But that is not the way to end the evil. Evil is the stench of a mind that is diseased. Heal your mind and it will cease to project distorted, ugly pictures. The questioner says, what you say I understand, but emotionally I cannot accept it. This merely idealistic view of life repels me deeply. I just cannot think myself to be permanently in a state of dream. Nisargadatta Maharaj answers, how can you be permanently in a state caused by an impermanent body? This misunderstanding is based on your idea that you are the body. Examine the idea, see its inherent contradictions, and realize that your present existence is like a shower of sparks, each spark lasting a second and the shower itself only a minute or two. Surely a thing of which the beginning is the end can have no middle. Respect your terms. Reality cannot be momentary. It is timeless, but timelessness is not duration. And the questioner says, I admit that the world in which I live is not the real world, but there is a real world of which I see a distorted picture. The distortion may be due to some blemish in my body or mind. But when you say there is no real world, only a dream world in my mind, I cannot take it. I wish I could believe that all the horrors of existence are due to my having a body. Suicide would be the way out. And Nisargadatta Maharaj answers, as long as you pay attention to ideas, your own or those of others, you will be in trouble. But if you disregard all teachings, all books, anything put into words, and dive deeply within yourself and find yourself, this alone will solve all your problems and leave you in full mastery of every situation, because you will not be dominated by your ideas about the situation. Take an example. You are in the company of an attractive woman. You get ideas about her, and this creates a sexual situation. A problem is created, and you start looking for books on continence or enjoyment. Were you a baby, both of you could be naked and together without any problem arising. Just stop thinking you are bodies, and the problems of sex and love will lose their meaning. With all sense of limitation gone, fear, pain, and the search for pleasure all cease. Only awareness remains. Now that's an interesting way to respond to the situation, and I very much admire Nisargadatta Maharaj, but he's also from a different tradition. He's from the Advaita Vedanta tradition, and I always feel that there's a slight tendency to be a bit too idealistic within that tradition. So, while I feel like I understand his answer, it's not quite the answer that I would give, and it's not quite the answer that would come out of, I don't know what he's barking at, my father-in-law probably, that the tradition that I come from would give. But when you look at the tradition, the Buddhist tradition, one of the ways that it's often misunderstood is that it's taken out of context. So when we look at the words left behind by Dogen and people like that, we can envision their world as being this sort of idyllic, peaceful time of the past, you know, with the beautiful cypress trees and the little castles and stuff, you know, all the things you think of when you think of ancient Asia. But it was also a time where there was wars, there was violence of all sorts, there was no such thing as a police force to run to if something happens. So basically the strong just dominated the weak. It was a difficult time to be alive. And what Buddhists do was they took refuge, right? And when we think of taking refuge these days, it tends to sound like an abstraction. We're taking refuge in the Dharma. It just sounds very abstract. For the people in Dogen's time, it was real. Taking refuge in the Dharma meant literally going off to a place that was very far away from where all the action was happening, where all the wars and everything were happening, and going off in the mountains to a secluded spot to focus specifically on meditation and be free from all that. So these days we're inundated with information. So there's a lot of news, and you can always see what's going on, and there's instant pictures of all the bombs going off, and every belligerent politician who says something, we get to hear it 10 seconds later, or maybe even exactly at the time it's said. So we're getting all this information, and we're hearing all this stuff, and we're trying to make sense out of it. But you can't make sense out of it, because there's this big world out there that you can have no real discernible effect on most of the time. So most of what you're going to see of, the pain in the world, as my questioner asks, is, remember that Buddhism starts off from the premise that my teacher didn't really like, but I think it's a legitimate way of understanding the first noble truth, is all life is suffering. We can talk about the Nishijima Roshi's version of what that means, but I think he would still agree that in some level all life is suffering. So it's not just that there's the big suffering that's going on over in that country over there right now with all this and that stuff that we're happening and that we're seeing on the news and all that. There's suffering going on right here, right in front of you, right within you, right everywhere around you. And to me, the most important suffering to attend to is the immediate environment. And I say this all the time, and then people get mad at me, like, you're being callous and you don't care. And it's not that I'm being callous and I don't care. It's just that there isn't much I can do for something that's thousands of miles away. There's often nothing I can do for something that's right next door to me, because I don't have the relationship with my neighbors to be able to interact with them. So I have to interact with what I can interact with right here. And this conversation that I've been reading to you today is an interesting one, because I've read it several times, and it's also taken out of context, but I can feel as I read it, and it took a few readings to get this, that there's a change going on in the questioner. The questioner is being very abstract about the various things that are going on in the world, but he thinks he's being concrete. So when Nisargadatta Maharaj answers in a very specific manner about what you, dear questioner, are going to do about your life, then the questioner gets defensive and goes, oh, no, you're being abstract. There's real violence going on over there. But the real violence is going on over there. And what's going on in this conversation is what's going on in that room in Mumbai above the cigarette shop where Nisargadatta Maharaj gave his talks. So it's a totally different thing. So what he is trying to do, what Nisargadatta Maharaj is doing, is bringing it back down to this real interaction that these two people are having, rather than the abstraction that the questioner thinks is real. And I think that's what we get into a lot. We're dealing with abstractions. The things we see on the news, and then all these pictures that we're seeing in papers and on the internet and whatever, they're abstractions. They're images. But what's going on right now within us is what is important to attend to. And what he says is, unless there is order in yourself, there can be no order in the world. So what we do to respond to all that is work on the order within ourselves. We do Zazen practice, if you're in the tradition that I'm in, to work on the order within ourselves and the order amongst the people we're directly interacting with, like Ziggy. And I don't know what he's doing. Anyway, so there you go. That's what Nisargadatta Maharaj says about that, and that's what I say about that, and I hope it's useful. So if you want to keep supporting me, I have noticed that my donations are going down lately. It's probably a lot to do with the various troubles and things that are happening in the world, but I do appreciate your support, and do know that my support is on the downswing now. So I do appreciate your donations, which you can go to the URL you're seeing below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my Patreon and PayPal accounts, and those are my main and pretty much my only ways of making a living. So I do appreciate your support, and just know that it's dwindling, so I could use some support. So I want to thank you, and but as I always say, this is offered for free, so you don't got to donate if you don't want to donate. So have a good time all the time. See you later. Bye. Ziggy, what kind of conflict are you dealing with right now, huh? Are you worried about the conflict in the world? Or are you just worried about whether you're going to be able to get a treat or not from Gammy and Gampa? Oh, you're ignoring me now. All right. Bye, Ziggy.